Hey everyone, it's Anya. Apologies for the slightly less interesting video background this time, but I was just sitting here on the couch having eaten my dinner and I really didn't feel like moving across the room and sitting at the table. I felt like being comfortable. And I also thought I might try a slightly different lighting setup so that it might be maybe a slightly brighter and less yellow video this time around. I'm kind of just getting used to it being dark all the time when I get home from work. And I don't really tend to get time to make videos at the weekend. It's always a bit of a, crazy time. I'm going meeting people and everything like that. So now that it's winter and it's dark from pretty much 4 o'clock, all my videos have to be done after daylight hours. So getting the lighting right is a bit of a challenge. Anyway, after making my video last week about rituals, I've kind of ended up thinking about the rituals that I do a bit more and how ritual fits into my life, how often I do it, all that kind of thing. And whereas I talked exclusively in the last video about pretty kind of formal rituals, I definitely do quite a lot of other things in my life that I would consider to be part of my spiritual practice that don't necessarily fit into those kind of rigid structure, or that kind of framework. But I actually don't do as many of those kind of things that I would like to. I read a lot of blogs with other pagans talking about that kind of ritual kind of setup where it's something very simple. Maybe simple daily practices, things they do when they get up in the morning before they go to bed. I've heard about quite a few different pagans doing rituals based around tea, around drinking tea and making tea, where they might pour 2 cups and leave 1 cup sort of as an offering, and then pour it as a libation onto the ground when they're finished, and that kind of thing. And those kind of little rituals, they really appeal to me, but I suppose maybe they take a while to get going with. They're the kinds of things that probably are best if they arise organically in your life. If maybe you're sitting having tea one day and you just feel like making it into a bit of a more ritualistic kind of thing, a bit more explicitly ritualistic or whatever. And I guess there are probably 2 reasons that those kind of little mini rituals or daily rituals haven't really come about in my life, and probably because, first of all, I've really only been doing formal spiritual practice for just over a year, and I guess it takes time. And also just my life schedule is a bit all over the place. In the past year I was unemployed for a few months, and then I've been doing an internship which comes to an end in a couple of weeks, and then I'll be starting a job in the same organisation, but it will be a different job with a slightly different schedule and things like that. So my schedule is a bit all over the place. Excuse me, I've still got a bit of a cough after being sick a week ago. And then, as I've mentioned so many other times, because I'm in a relationship but I don't live with my boyfriend, that is quite time consuming and quite disruptive in my routine, because a lot of the time I tend to go over to his apartment rather than him coming over to mine for various reasons. So and between that and going out, I visit my parents quite a lot. I still go back to their house quite a lot to see them, and also because of my cat. I have a cat who lives with my parents, and for various reasons I couldn't bring her here, so I have to go and well, I don't have to, but I do go and visit her regularly. So basically I don't have a nice regular kind of daily structure, and I don't even really have one home. I have at least 2 places that I consider to be home, and my boyfriend's house is pretty much home to me now as well. I spend pretty much as much time there as I do here. So it's kind of difficult then to get into a pattern of doing anything first thing when you get up in the morning, or last thing before you go to bed at night, because you're in a different environment each time. And whereas I could probably easily set up something in my parents' house that would mirror what I do here, when I'm with my boyfriend it's a little bit different because he's there and I'm still a little bit uncomfortable about doing things like that in front of him. And also then having things in his apartment, I'm not sure, I haven't set up any sort of altar space in his apartment or anything like that. And I'm not sure I feel comfortable yet to do that either, because it's only been maybe 6 months since I even told him about any of this. But basically I wasn't actually going to start by talking about mini rituals and that kind of thing. But I guess I'll continue in that vein for a little bit. One small kind of ritual type or daily practice kind of thing that I did start doing at one point was a daily meditation. And I really enjoyed doing that. I really found that grounded me better in my spirituality. I was kind of finding that although I do celebrate both the full moon and the dark moon, I was finding that doing ritual at a sort of around every 2 weeks, slightly more when you count in the Sabbaths as well, but doing ritual every 2 weeks just didn't really feel like quite enough. It felt like quite a lot of time went by between them, and I wasn't really getting into the swing of it. So I wanted to do something on a daily basis. So I started doing meditation, and I can't say that it really took off for me. I got really into it for a while, and I made a commitment at one point in around September to meditate every day, and I was kind of, you could say, working with the Morrigan. It's not really the same for naturalists as it is for hard polytheists when we talk about working with deities, because we don't believe that the same thing is happening, if you know what I mean. We don't believe that they are separate entities, but you could say that I was working with the Morrigan for that month, for that moon cycle. But between one thing and another, my meditation practice kind of went by the wayside a little bit. Now that's mostly because I took up yoga, and I feel like dedicating at least half an hour every day to one thing is probably enough, because my meditation practice was about 15 to 20 minutes, and between the yoga and meditation and everything else that I do after work, it just, you know, it was a bit too much. And the yoga I took it up initially because of my back. I don't have a particularly bad back. I've never been really incapacitated with it or anything, but back in my early university days, I did actually have a few weeks at various points where I was in pretty bad shape with it. Like, I think I did actually maybe miss a couple of days in college and stuff like that because my back was so bad that I literally couldn't not so much walk around but sit in a lecture theatre. You know, that was absolute agony. And, you know, I got a new mattress, and I started to be better about carrying books around and using a better bag for my back and things like that. But I just noticed recently in the last couple of months that my back had been acting up again, was getting sore, and I'd wake up in my boyfriend's house in particular, probably because his mattress isn't great, and I would have a pain in my back. And I just felt that at the age of, I was 24 then, I just felt this is too soon to be dealing with a kind of constant, kind of low grade, low level back pain, but it was there all the same. I just thought, right, it's trying to get this sorted. And my dad has fairly bad back problems as well. That's where I get them from. And he does yoga every day, and he absolutely swears by it. Since he's gone back to his yoga practice, his back is perfect again. You know, he doesn't have to worry about it at all anymore. So, but although excuse me, I've got a bit of a wheeze. You might be able to hear that every now and then. It's my cough, my cold kind of went to my chest a bit. So although it started out as a, you know, a physiological kind of practice, the idea was to sort out my back. I have also been trying to get fitter recently. I wouldn't say that my urge to get fitter isn't related at all to my spirituality. I think it definitely is related in that I feel like it's important to really get in touch with my body and to really get in touch with what it can do and what it can't do, and to push it to a point where I can, you know, I basically just wanted to be able to run. I thought that, hey, you know, in my mid-20s I should be able to run. So I took up running, and then also the yoga on top of that I felt was a, you know, a nice addition to that as well. But the yoga has kind of, I have tried to make it spiritual at the same time, because as soon as I started it, I found that I've just, it's sort of similar to meditation in that it does a similar thing to the mind and the body. It relaxes you. You can treat it the same way anyway. I mean, I'm sure you can do yoga without being mindful at all, but for me, when I do my yoga, I try to be mindful. I try to let go of everything else and let go of the monkey mind and the day's worries and all of that kind of thing, and really just concentrate on the moment. Another thing I do apart from the yoga, and this, I haven't quite managed to get this into being a daily practice. I kind of just do it whenever I can, is that I have a track of music that I listen to, and I light candles first. I do a sort of dedication to Goddess or Cosmos, and then I listen to this one track of music. It's about 5 minutes long, so it's kind of like a mini meditation, and it's easier for me to concentrate on that than to sit down and just do you know, like a breath meditation or something for 5 minutes. I find that I can get into the swing of it quicker if I'm listening to something specific like that, like a track, a piece of music. And I definitely would like to get into the habit of doing that every day, because 5 minutes before bed is kind of how I do it usually. It's not that much of a commitment really. It's definitely something that I can do wherever I am, just light a candle even, and just sit for 5 minutes before I go to bed. But one of the reasons I wanted to cultivate these mini rituals or small kind of daily rituals into my practice a bit more is because, as I've said before, it can be hard for me to find the time to do a full-blown ritual, and particularly for me to find the time to do that ritual on the actual day that I'm supposed to be doing it, say on the full moon or the dark moon. I mean, the moon cycle isn't, I wouldn't say that it's, I don't know if I would say it's not important to me. It is important to me. I don't necessarily believe that I can tap into energies of the moon cycle. I don't think it has any physical effect on me or anything like that. But I do like to notice the moon. I do tend to notice the moon whatever phase it's in when I'm out walking at night or whatever. And it definitely does affect me to some degree. But deciding to follow the moon cycle was more to do with just, it's another cycle that is visible on Earth, I suppose. So it seemed worth it to attach my ritual practice to something like the moon, rather than just having it be whenever I can or once a week. Once a week kind of seemed like too much at the time anyway, when I was starting out with all this. But what tends to happen is that the full moon rolls around, and I plan to do the ritual that evening, but then something happens and I'm not at home, or I'm with my boyfriend or whatever, and it doesn't happen, and then maybe a few days or even a week late I might get around to doing the ritual, and then I'm kind of thinking, well, is this for the full moon or the dark moon, or isn't it? And I think I would quite like to get to a point where I had more specific mini rituals that I could do instead of doing a full-blown ritual on the full moon and the dark moon, like an alternative way of acknowledging those times. And I read a blog post just today by her name is Mo. Her blog is Heart-Shaped Hands, I think. Yeah, heartshapedhands.co.uk. And she wrote a blog post just the other day about the full moon and about how she celebrates it. And she was basically saying that although she started out in paganism doing the kind of full-blown rituals and, casting the circle and calling the elements and all of that she eventually reached a point where she just felt that it wasn't really working for her. She also has a small child, and that's obviously quite restrictive, means that she can't necessarily find the time when she wants to sit down and do a ritual. So what she's ended up doing is having a couple of different mini rituals that she does during the day, just sort of a list of things that she likes to do on the day of the full moon. And I really like the idea of that, alongside maybe a daily practice, something like that about marking the full moon by doing having certain actions that you take is maybe more realistic for me right now than having convoluted daily rituals that I do. Because although I mightn't be able to get around to doing the same thing every morning and every evening when I have such a crazy schedule, I can surely find the time on the full moon or on the dark moon to have, say, 3 things that I do during the day, each of which might only take 5 minutes. So I really like that idea. And it also seems, in a way, preferable to me to doing a full-blown ritual for all of these points. I don't know, I mean, maybe I'm turning away a bit more from structured ritual. I definitely still enjoy structured ritual. I think it has its place. But I'm starting to think that maybe it's not the be-all and end-all of everything. And maybe it should just be, maybe it'll be something that I will just do for Sabbaths or just when I feel like it. I think maybe I would prefer to just do it when I feel like it, when the mood strikes me, and then just have other little things that become meaningful for me over time that I do at the full moon and the dark moon and things like that. One last thing I want to talk about is the problem of motivation when you're a naturalistic pagan. I think this is, a lot of people talk in the naturalistic pagan community about why they do ritual. It's a question that gets asked a lot. If you don't believe in personified deity, then why are you doing your ritual if you're not connecting to energies and doing magic and all that kind of thing? Why do ritual at all? But I think maybe the why of ritual has never been a problem for me. I've never kind of sat there going, why am I doing this? I definitely know why I'm doing it. I respond very well to doing ritual. It's very meaningful for me. I've had some really really meaningful experiences in ritual and that kind of thing, but the main question for me would be how to motivate yourself to actually do it, because it's all very well when you have the time and you actually do sit down and do it, that you enjoy it and you get something out of it, but I think there can be a problem that because you don't think that there are gods watching you or expecting you to do things, or that you've made commitments to these literal personal deities, that there isn't so much pressure on you, or not even pressure, but motivation to actually do these rituals at the right time and keep to those commitments. I don't know if it's lack of motivation that stops me from doing these things. I definitely make a choice sometimes that I'm not going to do a ritual on a certain night, and maybe that's just my life setup at the moment. I'd say the main thing that has helped me feel motivated to do rituals is aligning them with the Sabbaths and also with the full moon and dark moon. Even though particularly with the moon cycle, that, like I said before, I don't necessarily see it in the same way that Wiccans do or other pagans do. But it definitely provides motivation when you have a very specific time that you say to yourself, this is when I do ritual. I think maybe if you think more about what ritual is actually doing for you and why you're doing it, that probably helps with the motivation too. Like I say, that the why of ritual hasn't been a problem for me, but I think maybe for some naturalistic pagans there is a bit of tension there between their kind of logical minds and their emotional need for ritual and need for spirituality, and that might be something that you have to get to grips with and address. I would say if you don't want to necessarily do rituals on the full and dark moon, an alternative would be a day of the week, sort of like having a holy day. I think that works very well. I can see why so many religions have that. It just gives you that opportunity to say, no, this is the time that I do ritual, this is the time that I commune with deity, that I do whatever it is that I do in my spiritual practice, and just stick to that as much as possible. And don't beat yourself up, I suppose, if you don't get round to doing it. Just pick up where you left off, do it when you can, or just do the next one that comes around, and don't beat yourself up about it. But I would say that the main thing, if you're finding that you can't motivate yourself to do your rituals, you can't motivate yourself to keep those commitments that you've made spiritually, I'd say you need to readdress what it is you're doing with your spiritual practice. Because I would say that would point at some sort of tension or dissatisfaction with your spiritual practice itself, with the ritual itself, or with the things that you do, with the practices that you have in your spirituality. I think if those aren't really grounded and really solid, then you're more likely to end up not doing them. And sometimes people maybe don't realise where they're going wrong with that. They mightn't be able to figure out, well, why isn't it that I feel like doing ritual? Like, it can be quite difficult to get to grips with which parts of the ritual aren't working for you maybe. And I think a lot of people as well, they feel like, well, because I'm a pagan, I have to do this full-blown ritual, I have to cast a circle and call the quarters. And I think it's important to remember that you don't have to do that. You know, you don't have to do any of this really. It's a completely personal choice, and that's the joy of, you know, spiritualities like paganism and other spiritual paths like that, is that there's no authority telling you that you have to do any of this. And if you're not being called to do it, if you're not feeling really joyful at the thought that, oh, I get to do this today or whatever, then there's probably something amiss with your spiritual practice, and it's probably something that you need to address. And if you don't have the time for it, like, that's fine. Take a break and take a step back and do what it is you feel like doing. If all you feel like doing is going for a walk and just looking at the moon, and or, you know, going for a walk during the day on a Sabbath and noticing what the weather is like, noticing what the earth around you is doing, then that's fine. I wouldn't feel guilty about that for a second, because at the end of the day, it's your own spiritual practice and it's intensely personal, or I believe it should be. And if you need to take a break, well then I would say go for it, take a break, and definitely don't beat yourself up about it. On the other hand, you might feel that you actually do want to commit to doing ritual, you know, every full moon for a certain amount of time or whatever, to get into the swing of it and to see how you respond to it emotionally and psychologically and everything else, to doing ritual in that way for a while. And I think that's fair enough. And I would say, like I said, in that case, if you really are determined to stick with your ritual guideline, with what you decided you were going to do, then yeah, the best thing to do is to just have it very regular. Know that you're going to have a time that you're going to be able to do it, and just try to stick to that. And one thing that I do in that situation, if I feel like I don't have the time to do a full-blown ritual, but I kind of want to because I've told myself I will, then I often will say to myself, okay, I'll just do a short one. I'll break it down, I'll make it simple. And often that turns into a full-blown ritual in the end anyway, but just puts you under a little bit less pressure. It doesn't make you feel like, oh no, I've got so much to do, I don't have the time to do this. If you just take part of your ritual, say your central part of your ritual where you acknowledge deity or whatever it is that's central to your practice, I would say try taking that and just doing that part and go from there. And if that's all you have the time to do, then go for it. Just do that. Okay, this is a bit of a rambly video. I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. One more thing I just want to say before I go is that I did mention before in a video that I was thinking about starting to do tarot readings for money kind of thing, to offer tarot readings on an Etsy shop or something like that. And then it didn't happen. I never mentioned it again. But basically I've decided that I'm not going to go ahead with that for the moment. Probably not until I finish the job that I'm starting in December. I'll be finishing that at the end of March. So I'm thinking that I might actually try and get an Etsy shop up and running then. I've got various other ideas for the Etsy shop because I am artistic. I kind of have various crafty ideas, and if I get painting again, I might sell paintings and stuff like that. So I'll be talking about that between now and then. I just wanted to mention that I probably will be selling tarot readings at some point in the future, but probably not immediately. What I might do though is offer free readings on my Facebook page. If you didn't know I had a Facebook page, I do. I'll link it down below. I'm getting a little bit more active on that now because I have a tablet, which is handy for, little random posts during the day and things like that. So yeah, if you want to like me on there, and you can follow me there, and if I decide to do some free tarot readings, just some short free tarot readings, I might do that over the coming months. Okay guys, I'll leave it there for the moment. Talk to you again soon.